Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. Bad news to start off this video. Sean's channel SGT report was deleted. He tweeted this out a few hours ago. New post, YouTube is even worse than Big Brother. They delete history altogether. And I don't know why this like or heart or whatever was taken down. But anyway, well, that went from 75 to 84. Weird Twitter. All right, anyway, so I'm really bummed about this one because I feel like we lost a soldier, like a running mate here. You know, I've been talking to friends and behind the scenes here have been talking a little bit about trying to figure out building ways or systems to preserve some of the information, and really not just the information, but the education that channels like SGT Report provides. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It's not just information that opposes the mainstream and the stuff you're not going to hear about. This is educational because it helps you understand the world at large. Even if you disagree with the things Sean talks about or the things he posts about, you can't deny the fact that, number one, his heart is in the right place. Number two, that the censoring of people like Sean is because they don't want people out there to question authoritative outlets that control the narrative of the entire world. And when you start picking at how the magic trick is done and exposing some of their tactics and methodologies, they don't like it because it undoes the deception, it undoes the brainwashing, and the methods they use no longer work. You know, I can watch a movie now and man, I'm sitting there the whole time going, wow, there's just the symbolism is over the top, this here, that there. And there's no way I can even put it in videos now because there's so much stuff everywhere. It's a constant flow of this propaganda, of this occult knowledge, of this historic, mystical, religious prophecy that they've always wanted to do that really became tangible, I think, in the last century. And all the meetings took place to make this happen, to facilitate it. And that's something that's documented, and I'm going to plug it again, and I'm going to keep plugging it. The Minds of Men, a film by Aaron and Melissa Dykes. You guys have to go support them and watch this film because this will really fill you in on the information, the hard data, and the circumstantial information that all adds up to, man, they were doing some messed up stuff to people, to innocent people. They were doing some messed up experiments, all for the sake of controlling societies, a whole population, and ultimately through electronics. And man, I have to say this. I grew up in public education, and part of what we do is dissect animals. At least out here on the West Coast where I grew up, we dissect animals. And I was having a chat with some friends about these topics, and they brought up the fact that they felt the public education system of dissecting animals is all part of the conditioning of the masses to accept this sort of cybernetic future of humanity where they blend into this hive mind through the cloud / blockchain because of the personal ledger and create this one hive mind world system that is totally controlled. Our behavior becomes totally controlled by the mechanisms and the feedback loops. But anyway, the idea of these dissections when you're a kid, I remember it, and I had a very, very interesting memory, and for those of you who go watch this film or have already seen this film, you'll know what I'm talking about. I distinctly remember my 6th grade science teacher doing a demonstration after we all did a dissection of a frog. We cut open a frog, we checked out the intestines and all the stuff and the muscles and everything, and I can't remember the name of the science teacher, but what she did was connect an electrode to one of the frog leg muscles, the thigh muscle. And once she started to dial up what the electrodes were connected to, the leg started to move and pump. And everyone was like, oh, freaked out because, it was like Frankenstein type of thing, right? But the lesson in 6th grade, folks, to us was like, hey, we're just electronic signals. And, while it's a cool concept in terms of understanding what we are as biological beings, it really subtly deceives you into thinking that we're nothing more than that. We're nothing more than this mesh, which leads us to one of two conclusions, and both are susceptible to accepting the mark and worshiping the image. One is the atheistic road that, hey, there is no God. And then if you keep going down that road, logically speaking, rationally, take that atheistic mindset all the way down to the end, logically you end up with nihilism where nothing matters. And there's that end of it where nothing matters, and so, we're just meat suits. So what difference does it make if we start altering the outside of what we are? Maybe the inside will improve, right? That's the whole philosophy from the atheistic, materialistic, reductionist point of view. Now, the other side of it is the spiritual side, the New Age side, which is being pumped out there with things like Burning Man and other festivals, and We Are One. You will hear We Are One all the time. Those types of philosophies are leading the people who are spiritual into accepting a sort of hive mind, technocratic system where we all get to share our data, share our experiences in this cloud hive mind. And that gets into some really crazy territory because you will start losing your memories, or the memories you do have may not be your own at that point if you participate in this crazy hive mind living experience. And I allude back to the story Atopia Chronicles. At this point, as I think about it, I think people need to read that book because it's sort of a modern day 1984 or a modern day Brave New World where the author, Matthew Mather, outlines exactly the type of society that they envision and, the dangers of it, but also, the moral quandaries that arise from such a civilization that is immersed in each other's business to the point where people vicariously live other people's experiences and thus becomes their memories, even though they weren't physically there to experience it. But again, if you can trick all the senses in the brain, then what difference does it make? And again, I bring it back to education. The future of education is, in this virtual tech world at least, very, very invasive. I just don't think we should go there. I don't think we should put our children through this type of technological toolage for education. This is just my personal opinion, but this is something that I think is going to be pertinent as we move forward. Now, this is an example of the types of tools that will be available for kids as they are immersed in this technology. This is Zach King, the Magical Mix-Up AR book. This is, let's see, who's the guy here? The Beard Bringer, back in May 11th, made this video, this little demonstration of this augmented reality experience here. Let me play a little bit of it. I have the sound down, but here you go. You can see how the experience of the book, the book comes alive, right? Remind you of a very popular film, maybe like Harry Potter. Okay, so we get it. The cat is cute, right? But yeah, Harry Potter. Which brings me to this video, Google's The Selfish Ledger leaked internal video. And again, I tip my hat off to Mel and Aaron Dykes who let me know about this video, and I think they're making a full breakdown of this, so I'll leave most of it to them. But the point about, the connection of Harry Potter and, the magical sort of news that moves and stuff like that in connection to augmented realities is really appropriate here in many ways because it shapes education and it shapes the way we learn and understand the world around us. And of course, the quill being that feather that writes by itself, and Cornelius Fudge being the Minister of Magic in Harry Potter. And again, I think Mel and Aaron will make a complete breakdown of that video, or at least the stuff in this video. The basic idea of the Google Selfish Ledger is that by providing all of your data to this distributed ledger system, which I know you guys know as blockchain, blockchain technology is a huge part of helping this happen. By doing that, they say, we're going to be able to analyze not just your data, but generations worth of data perhaps, so that, maybe your kids or your kids' kids can look at this and say, hey, collectively as a humanity, we can eradicate things like depression and sadness and anger and violent outbursts and things like that, because we can figure out a way to create an end goal on the ledger and say, hey, here's a desired goal of where we want to take our behavior. Let's modify ourselves as we move towards that end goal. And that, folks, is very, very dangerous because you are putting your daily activities and your daily life cycles, whatever, everything into the hands of a machine and into the hands of what is unknown in this black box of computing that allows you to become this thing that your desired goal is. But what if that desired goal is shifted into something else? And it doesn't even matter, because once you're in that control mechanism, it's very hard to break out of it. And there's another section here that I wanted to actually play for you. Unus pro omnibus, which means, all is one, one is all. It's the same idea that I was talking about with this notion of oneness that comes from a complete nihilistic point of view, or comes from this hyper-spiritual new agey view of oneness, that we are all one, this monistic concept, both of which lead to a bad place.
User data has the capability to survive beyond the limits of our biological selves.
Okay, that is very true. User data survives us. The strange phenomenon that we've seen in this generation, right, is people dying and then having their social media accounts still there. And you've seen it. I know you guys have seen this on Facebook, where people have passed away and people leave, nice messages and things like that. But it's weird. It's weird because now, beyond just, having a social media account and having fun with it, you are starting to see how the digital world preserves a person. And this is very, very bizarre and strange indeed. But I think what we're leading towards is this idea of collecting all that information to a knowledge base that will feed back into humanity so that we can change ourselves into what we think we want to become as better and faster and more efficient and all these things.
Selves, in much the same way as genetic code is released and propagated in nature. By considering this data through a Lamarckian lens, the codified experiences within the ledger become an accumulation of behavioral knowledge throughout the life of an individual. By thinking of user data as multi-generational, it becomes possible for emerging users to benefit from the preceding generation's behaviors and decisions. As new users enter an ecosystem, they begin to create their own trail of data. By comparing this emergent ledger with the mass of historical user data, it becomes possible to make increasingly accurate predictions about decisions and future behaviors. As cycles of collection and comparison extend, it may be possible to develop a species-level understanding of complex issues such as depression, health, and poverty. Our ability to interpret user data, combined with the exponential growth in sensor-enabled objects, will result in an increasingly detailed account of who we are as people. As these streams of information are brought together, the effect is multiplied. New patterns become apparent and new predictions become possible.
Behavioral sequencing. It's all about engineering your behavior. And it's all about controlling the input of what you get. Now, after watching this video here and hearing what they had to say, let me go back to some of the things I was talking about with these educational tools. Now, the future of technology and the use of it for education is crazy. The Advanced Distributed Learning Initiative, building the future learning ecosystem using technology. Really. Distributed learning policy and technical guidelines. Where have we heard the word distributed? A blockchain. Where were we talking about with this video? Ledgers. What technology would benefit the ledger? Blockchain. So it all seems to connect. And under the R&D section here, that's research and development, they have a couple interesting documents here. The 2017 DoD Distributed Learning Gaps, which has some stuff here that I found interesting as I was scanning through it. Cybersecurity compliance processes, human capital management. Now that was really interesting here because it talks about current state, lack of integration with human capital management capabilities, desired state, integrated human capital management strategy and capabilities. What did we talk about here in this little video? About a desired result using the ledger and changing behavior. This is pretty much the same thing, creating a desired state and then having the effects or behavioral changes that lead towards that desired state. And there's another document here called At the Tipping Point. Again, I'll leave links to all this stuff so you guys can dig around yourselves. And then there's a page about projects. And if you scroll down here to the learning activity providers, It talks about how this is a distributed learning system and how traditionally they used e-learning in pages or, instructional videos, but now with mobile learning, web-based simulations and ebooks, and they're exploring how to use emerging learning devices as a learning-centric system of systems with the advantages to share data both individually and collectively create unique and valuable learning experiences. This is creating a hive mind. Out of control. One of the first ones they mention here is pervasive learning systems, or PERLS, because, if they use the first 4 letters there, it may mean something else there. But anyway, if you go into what they're all about, it says here they're here to enable learners to have increased control over what, when, and how they learn, and takes into account that finding relevant content can be time-consuming and challenging. So, it helps you refine how to learn what you want to learn. And how does that happen? PERLS is capable of monitoring a user's GPS, interests, expertise, schedule, and daily routines. Are you kidding me, folks? That's everything. That is pure surveillance right there. Pure surveillance of your entire life. It uses this information to suggest learning content and persuades the learner to read that content based on their personal preferences and goals, time and location constraints, and level of expertise in the form of smart lists and smart alerts. And this is the PERLS website. And here you go. They have the whole educational system here. And at the very bottom, it tells us that they are part of the Department of Defense, and they're developed by the SRI, Stanford Research Institute International. And if you guys know a little history, or, you can go watch The Minds of Men, they're behind a lot of stuff. And if you go to Ventures, Portfolio, here's a whole list of companies that they have invested in, and, has AI and drones and all kinds of stuff. This one I found was useful. This one's called Highlights. It actually highlights video, which would be very nice. But otherwise, the stuff that they have here is pretty telling as to what direction they're headed. This one, Meta, is acquired by Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, which, if you look it up, it's Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, their little initiative there. They're the ones in charge of Meta, which, again, I don't know what exactly they do. They say they help people understand what's going on globally, but, I don't know. It's just a weird situation to even have stuff like that. Again, probably tied up into some strange business with government authorities. We know that. We know that already with Zuckerberg, so no surprises there. But it's pretty disturbing to look at where education is headed. If I, back in elementary school in 6th grade, was shown electric shock, to bring, a dead frog back to life effectively by making it not jump around, but, at least move its leg or whatever. If that was the kind of thing I was being indoctrinated in during my public school experience, what are the kids experiencing now? And what are they going to experience in the near future when these technologies become highly integrated into the educational system? And while we say it's evil, you don't have to think it's evil, but at least you will know what the reality of the situation is. They don't like that. They don't like the fact that there are people out there exposing that. And so it's really unfortunate for people like Sean to get hit like this. But I think this is one of those issues where we have to keep fighting. We got to keep pressing on in terms of this information battle of people trying to simply report the truth. And, people get upset about me not looking into certain topics, or other channels or other people not looking at certain topics, because, that's the pillar of truth, that if you're not looking into that topic or this topic, then you're not exposing the truth, or this group or that group. The bottom line here, folks, and this has been a consistent message on this channel, is that we live in a spiritual battle. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. The enemy is not so much the people. They're carrying out these acts, but it's not so much that we need to beat on them and exclude them. It's more like, look, your ideas, the ideas that guide you, the philosophies, the worldview, these are the areas that need to be re-examined as a society, as a culture, and as individuals, really. So please pray about the situation. Ask God to really get people in YouTube to understand what's going on, feel the conviction that, maybe they're doing something wrong over there, and reverse this so we can get Sean's channel back on YouTube. And in the meantime, the rest of us, YouTubers, big and small, doesn't matter, okay? Doesn't matter if you have millions of subs or a few thousand. If you're saying things on your channel that are not popular, that are not status quo, and you will be terminated if you cross a certain line. And I believe there are certain tactics taking place with certain topics being used to eradicate certain voices online as well. So there's a lot happening, folks. And, it's hard to parse it out. It's really confusing at times, but I think we just have to maintain a level of confidence in the truth of God, because we shouldn't be afraid of any of this stuff, okay? I know it sucks, and the wounds, they hurt, but really, these are casualties of this information battle, which is ultimately this spiritual battle, because the ideas that are being thrown out there on the internet are shaping society in a way that is very, very tangibly getting out of control. And the more this type of censoring is allowed to happen on the internet, the more society is going to decline and split into people who are really shouting off the top of their roof like, hey, this is what's really going on, or at least consider a different narrative than what you're being fed every day. And then those who are totally bought in, and those folks are the ones we're trying to reach, really, and say, hey, come on, folks, there's a lot of meat here in the truth. It all makes a lot more sense. Okay, and at whatever level you're at, because this is ultimately a personal journey, but at the same time, we're all in this crazy cosmic unfolding of craziness in this time. We're put on this earth in such an amazing time, folks. Most of your ancestors did not have an iPhone. Shocking, I know. But most of your ancestors wouldn't have imagined a machine that they can plug into your brain and communicate with other things or objects or people or whatever. So anyway, I'm rambling on here. We need to do some stuff in the background here. We're going to be working on it. Please pray over us. Please pray over the situation. And go subscribe to the SGT report, the backup channel, and support Sean over at Patreon. Go download and buy The Minds of Men, Aaron and Melissa Dykes. They made a masterpiece. That's all I got to say, folks. Have an awesome day. God bless.